Thank you also to Presidency University for having us all, and Shakista for putting up with my logistical arrangements and getting us all here. Are you getting the reverb effect? Am I too close to the mic? No. So this talk falls, I think, into a sort of performative reassessment genre rather than a prescriptive one. And I'm not going to try to draw too many links. I hope that the links to earlier talks are apparent. It's interesting to be the last person speaking today of a long symposium like this, because partly I feel like many of the things that I wanted to say have already been said, and I'm just kind of like, well, what do we have to? I just want to synthesize at this point. And I was also, I wanted to begin with a question. It occurred to me that I was wondering if reassessment can only ever be staged to be considered an activist reassessment. So in this sense, you can consider this a staging of a reassessment. So like many ideas dreamed up before the American elections this past November, the talk I initially planned to give at the symposium has been overtaken by events. While in no way fortunate, this term is nonetheless in tune with our theme, and even lends a certain heightened urgency to the word and the activities of experimentation, picking, choosing, measuring, with which it's associated. These actions may otherwise seem to belong to a more patient and prosperous intellectual climate than the one we find ourselves now living through. But since we're at the beginning of another transformation in literature and politics, this may be the moment to pack our bags, metaphorically, and figure out what we should take with us on the journey. In the aftermath of the disaster, I found myself turning back to two writers whose meaningfulness to me had been clouded over, shrouded for some time, but for whom I reached almost instinctively as soon as I felt endangered. The first of these is the German Jewish philosopher and historian Walter Benjamin, specifically his theses on the philosophy of history, written in Paris several months before he died while fleeing the Nazi occupation of France. A densely gnomic text, the Theses began as notes for a critique of the official French and German Communist parties' response to the Molotov-Ribbentrop or Stalin Pact, but broadened out to question and reshape concepts of progress in history. In the process, Benjamin also offers a theory of quotation that's tied to a distinctively Jewish theological mystical idea of redemption. Out of many frequently quoted sentences, some of them virtually cliches by now, every document of civilization is a document of barbarism. You've heard that one, maybe. The passage that leapt to my mind first is a relatively obscure one that occurs in the 6th of 18 fragments, aphorisms and mini-essays of varying lengths that make up the text. Benjamin here begins by countering the idea that the duty of the historian is to attempt to recreate, quote, the past as it really was. Rather, the aim, as he writes, is to seize hold of a memory as it flashes up at a moment of danger. In every era, the attempt must be made anew to wrest tradition away from a conformism that is about to overpower it. The Messiah comes not only as the Redeemer, he comes as the subduer of the Antichrist. Only that historian will have the gift of fanning the spark of hope in the past, who is firmly convinced that not even the dead will be safe from the enemy if he wins. And this enemy has not ceased to be victorious. All I could remember of this intricate and anguished passage was the phrase, not even the dead will be safe. And even then, I garbled it when asked to provide the title of this talk. Not even the past is safe, was how I put it to myself, and how it now appears in the program. Whatever embarrassment I feel, and I have to say sorry to all of you and to Walter Benjamin, the reasons behind this slip are, I think, worth a momentary digression before I turn back to what Benjamin actually wrote. So what had happened that in a moment of danger made me misremember? Partly, my mind had confused Benjamin's aphorism with William Faulkner's well-known line about how, quote, the past is never dead, it isn't even past. In some ways, the politically conservative novelist of the American South and the left-wing anarcho-messianic philosopher shared an intuition about the structure of the time. Contrary to the cynic who appears in Leonard Cohen's lyrics, Everybody doesn't know the war is over. Everybody doesn't know the good guys lost. Eliding Faulkner and Benjamin, even unconsciously, as I have done, however, is also a kind of traditionalist, or traditionalizing error, of a kind that Benjamin warns against. It's as if I've been thinking, or still wanted to think, in order to protect myself from something, that there exists a familiar discourse of what we're used to calling literary modernism. And this discourse shares, across genres, continents, and political biases, an understanding of time and history as perpetually revisable because, in some ways, always with us. The past, as it is reinterpreted in the present moment, comes again to life and plays a role in shaping the cultural and political attitudes of a living generation. There's nothing controversial in this statement, even if it's something that so-called progressive politicians and avant-garde-minded artists would often prefer to forget. Still, the modernist mashup that I created out of Faulkner and Benjamin, not even the past is safe, is a more conventionalized and anodyne remark than not even the dead will be safe from the enemy. The past is an abstraction. The dead, however, are part of material reality. And Benjamin, although a dissident or heretical Marxist, certainly considers himself to be writing within a tradition of German materialism. Perhaps I failed to recall Benjamin's sentence properly because, as well as I thought I knew this text, I hadn't spent nearly enough time thinking about what Benjamin is doing by, so to speak, raising the dead, and making them as much a part of material life as cars, computers, and other indices of material wealth and poverty. Even more, like most of us, but perhaps especially this is a sin of Americans, I didn't want to think about death or the dead at all. Benjamin wishes to alert his reader to a dialectic of forgetting, through which one's dead ancestors can be lost to an enemy, just as one loses control of political power or territory. To recall the dead idly or haphazardly, without wrestling or resting, as Benjamin puts it, opens the possibility that the act of remembering may fall into an oblivion of what Benjamin calls conformism. And this risk operates constantly at every moment of reassessment or rereading. In every era, the attempt must be made anew to wrest tradition away from the conformism that is about to overpower it. The Messiah comes not only as the Redeemer, he comes as the subduer of the Antichrist. And yet, just when I thought I was returning to Benjamin, it turned out that what I was trying to make him do was conform to some larger canon of modernism, or a more straightforward line of thinking. In fact, I had never asked myself what exactly Benjamin meant by not even the dead will be safe. There were, of course, the Nazi desecrations of Jewish cemeteries, which Benjamin was aware of, also the confessions extorted by friends of his caught up in Stalin's purges, confessions which retroactively positioned these people, now dead, as enemies of the very revolution that they had fought to create. Neither their lives nor works were proof against the assault on collective memory. But the sentence is more than merely elusive or cryptic. It gestures toward a broader argument, one that, in an important sense, can be said to rewrite Faulkner. The dead are never the past, they aren't even dead. It might be easier to illustrate this sort of counterintuitive sounding statement with an anecdote or an extended allegory from a culture with a less defined limit between life and death than either Faulkner's America or Benjamin's Germany. In the Japanese director Kobayashi Masaki's 1962 film Seppuku, an intimidating full suit of armor, complete with a stern, human-featured visor mask, appears at three key moments. First, in the opening credit sequence, a tour through the empty mansion of the Ishii clan that displays its luxurious screens and trophies. The suit of armor is the only vaguely human figure in this entire parade, making it seem like a character in its own right. Then, in a second scene, the clan's counselor prays to the armor as a venerated ancestor, petitioning him for authorization to force a poor young samurai, a kind of refugee, whose former master has recently been purged by the shogun, to kill himself in the clan's courtyard. The clan is about to commit a crime of grotesque cruelty against hospitality by acting this way, and the counselor in some part of himself knows this, but by trying to burnish the clan's credentials in the eyes of those equal to it in power, he's trying to gain both honor and advantage. And he accomplishes this by claiming the sanction of this voiceless, masked, long-dead commander, who nevertheless is still in the room. At last, in a moment of nemesis, when the father-in-law of the self-murdered samurai wreaks his vengeance, he borrows the armor while fighting. But he does so haphazardly in the heat of battle, so that the legs fall off, an arm dangles grotesquely, and the helmet and mask are clasped around his shoulder, making him appear like a two-headed demon, both the ancestor himself and an outsider to the clan, who comes to show them how they have rendered the whole samurai code into a bloody farce. The dead samurai has been, we can say, reanimated through the intervention of this other agent. It would be a stretch to call this avenger a historian only, but that's also how he presents himself at the Ishi court, as someone who knows the traditions and also the particular stories, the conditions that led the young man to their gates to begin with, that they never bothered to ask themselves about. The tradition that the Ishi clan deployed to show off their power and privilege is thus shown to cut both ways, as it were. And one of the most traditional acts of samurai culture, ritual suicide, becomes not a theater of submission to feudal mastery, but an instrument of rebellion. So this all sounds good, you might be thinking, but what does this have to do with the art of contemporary writing, or the essay, what I promised to talk about today? Something I called, slightly offhandedly, anachronic style. So we're getting there. At the beginning of my talk, you might remember that I mentioned there were two writers who I turned to in this dispiriting time to be an American citizen. One was Benjamin, the refugee German Jew. The other was Emerson, America's foundational literary essayist, the original American mind who gave voice to the idea of America, or of American originality, or idiosyncrasy, what he termed nonconformity. Surely, I thought, at this moment, when America seemed to be falling into slavish imitation of authoritarian states like Russia, Turkey, and the Philippines, burlesquing these and other forms of anti-democratic intolerance, I would find something in Emerson that would restore a certain faith in the country that I felt to be slipping away from. What happened, in fact, was that reading Emerson was less inspiring and more disturbing than I expected. The uplifting cadences and exhortations to self-reliance took on sinister overtones of the populist know-nothings. Quote, the nonchalance of boys who are sure of a dinner is the healthy attitude of human nature. A boy is, in the parlor, what the pit is in a playhouse, independent, irresponsible, looking out from his corner on such people and facts as pass by. He tries and sentences them in the swift summary way of boys, as good, bad, interesting, silly, eloquent, troublesome. Or these sentences seem to describe the unbridled narcissism of the head man now occupying the White House. A man is to carry himself in the presence of all opposition as if everything were titular and ephemeral, but he. Emerson's paean to natural greatness of character came close to outright worship of power, and again spurns consensus. Power resides in the moment of transition from a past to a new state, in the shooting of the gulf and the darting to an aim. This one fact the world hates, that the soul becomes, for that forever degrades the past. And if none sees it, I see it, I am aware of it, if I alone of the greatness of the fact. Could it be that these sentences, part of a larger rhetoric of a robust ego, a wide and confident sense of self, were starting to sound like the terse tweets and subliterate ogreish gruntings of a tyrant, recalling the I alone can solve utterances during the debates of the election season? It would be somewhat pointless to expound to you the architecture and principles of Emerson's transcendentalist romantic philosophy in such a way that would make any passing prose resemblances to the character of my country's new leader seem purely coincidental or insignificantly marginal. I could do that. I may still do that. But since my own attention was arrested by this resemblance, the pollution of the present state of affairs seeping into my attempt to communicate with the past, I also, or with the dead, I should say, I also want to slow down to figure out why. So Trump, and that I've been forced to say his name itself causes a certain pang of despair, is no more Emerson's child than Hitler was Hölderlin's or Nietzsche's. Authoritarianism, however, in any guise, does rely implicitly on a grand, high, or romantic vision or style, a certain monumentalism, or as Macbeth says, vaulting ambition. And that reliance causes authors from cultures that fall prey to authoritarianism, and who also write or think ambitiously, to fall under a retroactive cloud of suspicion, an associative guilt. As writers, essayists, and thinkers, we can respond to this seizure of the tradition in at least two ways. One temptation would be to consign the high style of the public presentation of heroic self in American life over to history, to let it stand trophy-like and unused, like an empty suit of armor in the halls of power. This approach is actually already pervasive and has been for some time before Trump's ascendancy. If you look at the model essays selected in the Best American Essays anthologies and published in magazines over the last 8 to 10 years, they tend toward the satirical, the relentlessly empirical, pyramids of facts, something I once termed the information essay, or the exploration of the author's vulnerable minority status or personal suffering, usually medical or medicalized, leading sometimes to knowledge, other times to empathy or expanded awareness of other micro-communities of the pain. This last mode, with certain variations, was the tone adopted in many recent essays that tried to make sense of Trump supporters, like J.D. Vance's popular Hillbilly Elegy and the New Yorker's discovery of West Virginia and rural America in the work of Larissa McFarker and George Saunders. Although there were also instances of the satirical combined with the empirical, like Elliot Weinberger's magisterially dismissive They Could Have Picked essay in the London Review of Books, or the New York Times' publication of a 2-page roundup of everything terrible Trump said before and during the campaign. The assumption in these cases seems to be that writing in these ways is itself a quiet or subtle act of resistance to demagoguery and tyranny. This involves a mistaken expectation that if all information was somehow made democratically available, it would trigger a chain of events leading to justice without the pangs of revolution. This is writing that rests on a pacifist fantasy of revelation rather than Benjamin's activist redemption. But information alone, like technology alone, won't lead us into a promised post-political land of enlightened technocracy. Ideological battles must still be won or lost. In the words of another mystico-visionary writer, the tigers of wrath are wiser than the horses of destruction. I wonder, however, what might happen if another approach were adopted as well, or alongside the one that I mentioned above. What if certain American writers now tried to wrest back and redeem this high-style tradition of exhortation and persuasion in the American essay from those who've captured it, to make it available again? How would we set about, in other words, saving Emerson from Trump and his ilk? I grant that this seems like less an urgent issue than saving the living human beings threatened by the leader's current actions, but it may, in the end, prove to be no less important. A way towards this method that would aim at the revival or active reassessment of the stylistic inheritance can be found in Emerson's work itself. Much of how he writes not only sounds dated to contemporary ears, but was archaic language when these essays were first written. The winding up peroration in the self-reliance essay, to take one example of something Emerson does with regularity, and usually with good reasons, is pure mock Renaissance. Quote, so he exhorts the reader at the end of the essay, "So use all that is called fortune. Most men gamble with her, and gain all and lose all, as her wheel rolls. But do thou leave as unlawful these winnings, and deal with cause and effect, the chances of God. In the will, work and acquire, and thou hast chained the wheel chance, and shalt sit hereafter out of fear from her rotations." So no American ever sounded like this. The language is a little preacherly, but American preachers of the 1840s no longer spoke that way to their congregations. It's at once too high church and also too Quaker, and this opposition between fortune and will could come from the mouth of one of Shakespeare's characters. Passages like these, and Emerson is full of them, are like walks through the English language, the way he describes walks through nature. The knapsack of custom falls off his back with the first step he makes into these precincts. It is part of democratic experience for even the poorest man or woman to be able to use even the richest language to chart experiences. One can be grand without owning property or belonging to an elite. We lie in the lap of an immense intelligence, Emerson reminds us. So using language in this way demonstrates a kind of courageous insouciance, not in the sense of sloppiness, but in the sense of claiming squatters' rights over a mode or style of address that should not reside only at, say, 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, or the United Nations, the Supreme Court, the Episcopal Cathedral of St. John the Divine, or Harvard University. What's being offered to us here is an opportunity to indulge in greatness, or great souledness, that is not nativist or restrictive by gender, race, or class, but potentially expansive across times as well as across space and culture. But how do we, not just as writers, but as citizens, and not just as American citizens, but members of a broader polity, take up this invitation? And here I have to confess to you that this remains, at the moment, a mostly hypothetical project. I can't tell you who's trying to address contemporary situations through trans-historical language right now, or through a high style, because I don't know if anyone is doing it. The few attempts to channel a counter-rhetoric of greatness during the campaign season were alarmingly tone-deaf. America is already great, or lamely pious. America is great only when America is good. And the activist left, to which many writers claim allegiance, has become a priori suspicious of any instance of this kind of talk. The mood, even before Trump, was already pervasively cynical. So what I'm outlining, I think, is a field that's broadly open to being reinvested with imaginative force. But it's not exactly a take it or leave it decision to try, since the dead really do not belong only to the past, and indeed if they're not really dead, we see how, if we neglect their cultivation, they can be contaminated or reanimated to far worse purposes than our own.